Welcome to the creative brain of Dean Hawk. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and equipped to become a better ministry leader.
Hey, welcome to the Dean Hawk Leadership Podcast. I hope your summer is off to a great start. I want to remind you of all of our resources at deanhawk.com. You can check those out. Just a way to bless you as a pastor and a leader as you do your sermon series and preaching schedule. We'd love to help and assist you there. This month, I want to talk about a very, very real, near and dear subject to my heart, and that is it's lonely at the top. And I was recently doing some mentoring with some members of my team, and one of the questions they asked was this: is ministry always going to be this lonely? And I wished I had like this magical, delicious answer that said, oh no, it's not always going to be so lonely. But I would tell you one of the biggest challenges I've faced in 43 years of ministry is relationships and friendships, and who do you trust? And so I want to dig a little deeper into this area of where can we as pastors, ministers, and leaders, can we have friends? Should we have friends? And if so, how do we have friends? And so the first big idea we have to understand is, as humans, we are created for connection, and we have to have friendships and relationships. And here's what I run into a lot of pastors, that they go, oh, that's for everybody else, but not me. Because I've been hurt, I've been wounded, I've been stabbed in the back, I've been walked on. All of those things happen, but it doesn't deny the fact that you and I need honest, godly, healthy friendships and relationships. And to deny anything else is an attempt to deny the way God created us, because it was God that said to Adam, it's not good for you to be alone. And then I see pastors take two extremes. I'm the guy you're up the middle, but here's the two extremes. Everyone is out to hurt me. Everyone is out to get me. Don't be friends with anyone. I've seen those people in ministry. And then on the other end, I see people who are naive, and they're shocked, they're hurt when a friendship goes bad, and how could this happen? And when people hurt them, let them down, leave the church, and they turn, they're just blown away. Well, I'm just going to tell you it's going to happen. Jesus, one of his friends, turned his back on him, and if it happened to him, it's going to happen to us. And so one of the things that happens is, when we let someone into what I would say our inner circle, we let them in, sit at our friendship table, and then they come and they say, we're going to leave the church, but we still want to be friends. That's an awkward space and place. You've let them into your world. Now they're saying, we don't want to be a part of your world, but we'd still like to be a part of your friendship world. And there's all kinds of hurts, wounds, and offenses. But here's the choice that each of us have to make. Are we going to get bitter when those do happen? Or are we going to learn from it and allow it to make us better? And so one of the myths is that as leaders, we should not have friendships within our church, and that we need to maintain our leader role as a leader. Well, the fact is, I believe that I can be a person's leader and be in friendship with them. And our challenge as a leader is, if we place a higher priority on the friendship over our leadership, and we stop leading because we don't want to hurt the friendship, then that's where we're out of balance. And so that's the struggle. And we have to be willing to speak into our friend's life, who maybe are a part of our church or our organization. We can't back away from speaking into their life. And so this may surprise some of you. I hope a lot of you are like, ditto, do it the same. I am friends with staff members, lay leadership, board members, elders, church members. Kim and I go on vacations. We go out to dinner. We have coffee dates. I meet guys to go skiing, to go golfing, to do all kinds of things, and I embrace friendships. So today, I've invited one of my friends that's in my church to join me on this podcast. And so would you welcome my friend, Dion Greenwood. Good to have you, my friend.
Boom.
And I'm just going to do a little Q&A with Dion and his wife, Lizette. Kim and I, we go out to eat, we get together, we've been on a cruise, we're friends. And probably one of my favorite things that I think both of us like is we ski. We like to ski together. And so one of the things we do is we meet about 6 a.m. on a Friday morning and load up, head to the mountains. It's about a 2-hour blitz drive up the mountain. We ski our legs off, grab some food, and then head back down the mountain to be with our families again. But we always have some great conversations. And so, Dion, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
All right. So I just want to dive in. First off, I want to set it up a little bit. Because one of the myths is that, well, you can only trust people who have been in your church a long time. And so just give us a micro shot. How long have you been at the church? And if you pick up his Texas accent, he is from South Africa. And so just
African-American.
Yes, he's an African-American. So, and he is an American citizen as well. So just tell us about how you and your family got to the church.
In 2021, October, we came to the US after COVID. But then again, we left for Mexico for 4 months. So actually really only be back full-time in the church since August of 2022. Okay. So we really only have
about a
2-year relationship as friends.
Okay. One of the myths, Dion, that is out there is that if I, as a pastor, let people get close to me, that people like you will lose respect for me as a leader. And so I'm going to ask you live in front of my pastor friends, spending time with me, have you lost respect for me or have you gained respect for me?
It's actually an easy question if you look at it through the lens of godly submission.
Okay.
So as a congregant, I submit under the godly authority as you being my pastor.
Okay.
So I receive the pastoral advice, the pastoral counsel. And that makes my friendship even easier because when we connect with one another, I'm also close to you as a friend because we're spending the time together.
Sure.
And I don't take everything you say as I'm your pastor, I'm giving you this advice. I'm taking it from the heart of you caring for me, you sowing into this relationship as my friend.
Right.
But the godly submission, I think, is something that needs to be the key focus from the friend to the pastor through that lens, if it makes sense. Because if I look at you as a godly leader, I cannot dishonor you in any way. As a matter of fact, I will be your character reference if anybody comes with dishonoring statement where I say, listen, I'm your character reference. This is not like him. I stand and I vouch in contradicting.
And the reason that, well, can you see why I've chosen him as a friend? That's his heart. But here's the reason, because you've told me that before, when maybe someone's attacked me or someone's questioned something, you're like, the reason that he can be that character reference for me is he's seen me out away from the pulpit. He has seen me in any and every kind of situation to know that the person he sees on Sunday is the same person he sees on Friday morning at 6 a.m. Or if we're out on a trip together and it's, the middle of the afternoon, he's seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of me. And so I would just, if you're a pastor that you have habits, addictions, issues, challenges, a challenged marriage, you might not want to let people into your life, but my heart as a pastor is to live openly in front of everyone that I come in contact with.
And I think that comes with vulnerability because a lot of pastors will feel that they have to live a certain way in front of their congregants because if you are vulnerable, they will see your weak spot and they would think less of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the dishonoring thing comes in because you spoke to the waiter or the waitress in a dishonoring way. I now think less of you. But both of us feel ripped off when we pay $30 for a hamburger on the ski slope, right?
Right. a $30 cheeseburger on Breckenridge Mountain.
No, it's not good.
It's a challenge. Now, one of the things for people to understand that I want to ask you is how pastors understand what it's like for you as a church member. He serves and leads in multiple different ways, but what is it like for you as a church member to be invited into that friendship circle with a pastor? How did you think? How did you process? How did you respond?
So I think right in the beginning stages of things, and I think there's, and you're not my only pastor friend. Coming out of South Africa, I had a few, is to have that where you're not my friend because I'm a tither. You're not my friend because I'm a donor.
Right.
You're not my friend because I can give you something. And for me, the same way is it like, I'm not your friend so I can have traction in my ministry, or I'm not your friend because there's a hidden agenda for me. My agenda is we are friends. God showed me you to be my friend in a dream long before you knew you were going to be my friend. So I had to pursue this friendship and almost convince you that, listen, God ordained this friendship. Come on now, why are you slacking and taking the bait that we should go hang out and ski together? And then obviously once I think the Lord dropped in your heart that Dion Greenwood is an authentic friend, we ended up spending time together. And in spending that time, we both we're open with one another, where we have conversation 2 hours towards the ski slope, and we have a little disclaimer where we say what happens in the Lexus stays in the Lexus, or what happens in the Land Rover stays in the Land Rover. So we have conversation with one another, which is private conversation, and I know that you're not going to discuss it with anybody, and you discuss stuff with me that I don't go put in the newspaper and the Colorado Gazette. Have you heard? Have you seen?
And I'm not going to use them as a sermon illustration.
Exactly.
All right. So I have we touched on some things, and I'm going to dive in because you nipped on a little things. But I want you to share, and then I'm going to kind of come in and fill and talk about some things. But I want to share what are some attributes that you think makes our friendship work. I'll hit the first one. You talked about, I would use the word motives. Here's what you have to recognize. Dion is an entrepreneur. He's a very successful businessman. He is highly disciplined. He is an athlete. He is a husband. He is a father. He wants a good deal. Whatever he's going to buy, he's going to find a good deal. He doesn't know the word no as an answer. And so one of the things why there was a friendship chemistry is simply because of a very like-mindedness in the way we do life. We do life in the fast lane. So I'm gonna be really plain and simple. We race down the mountain. Neither of us like the bumps. We like the deep, steep, and fast. And so he measures his speed in metric. And I think when he transfers it to miles per hour, I think he somewhere finagles it. But both of us, we're going over 60 miles an hour, and we're having a heyday. So that ski slope kind of describes the way we both like to kind of go. If we're at a restaurant and the line's out the door, he and I are both back in the car with our wives going, we're going to another restaurant. Absolutely. It's going to be too long. We're going to make this happen. So I think that like-mindedness is there. But then something you touched on that's very real is motives. Here's what I know. I'm not using him to gain something from him. I'm not befriending him because I hope he'll give to this or that or something. And I know and can trust he's not using the relationship to say, hey, I'm the pastor's friend, to use it to jockey for power or position. In fact, there was one time, it's probably been 1.5 years, 2 years ago, he called me and he said, I want to give this amount of money to the church and I want to help with this. And I don't know how many people you've had say, no, I don't want you to give that because we're not prepared to properly use that. I appreciated his heart, but I didn't want to take his money that he was offering when we weren't fully set up to utilize it to get the best emphasis out of it. And so I hope that said to you, oh, he's not after what I have.
Absolutely.
And so I think that motive, talk about what you see as far as that motivation and not abusing that in a friendship.
Absolutely. And there's so many pastors out there that rallies for wealthy friendships. And ultimately, in that space, people are expendable. And people don't honor friendships. Like, what is the most valuable thing I possess? Which would be my word.
That's right.
So if I give you my word, that is, I've given you everything that I esteem to be valuable.
Yeah.
So I know you are your yes is a yes guy.
Right.
And that sits well with me in the sense of that I know I can trust you fully. You know, specifically, if I come from on the pastoral action is when we as a family was experiencing some tough times.
Yeah.
As a pastor, you pastored me, but then one day we went for a burger and you were there as my friend and we ate a burger and I cried and you cried with me and I value that we had that connection. I wouldn't say you can't get that in wealthy friends. I think you need to weigh up the authenticness of the heart that is behind it. You know, Proverbs 18:24 says, friends come and friends go, in the Message translation, but true friends is closer than family. So in that context, I see you not as a churchy or Christianese, you my brother. I trust you as my brother, as I would trust my brother. There's things that I share with you that I don't share with my brother.
Sure.
Which puts the value I have on this relationship. You know, I think also when you look at that wealthy connections, and again, I'm not speaking against wealthy connections. I'm just saying is that when somebody is self-sufficient, self-reliant, and the dependability is somewhere else, people are expendable. You know, you have wealthy businessmen that have thousands of employees, and it's difficult to have that close connection in the senses that I can trust this person. It's not just a means to an end, and I discard that if I don't have any use of it.
Exactly. And I think there's that element of trust that I think where pastors get hurt is if Dion had walked in the first day and I went, and I just opened the doors of my heart, my life, and went, we both began with micro trust, bigger trust, and then here's a great example. I don't remember the specifics, but we had been together as friends, and then we went out as couples, and in the conversation, I threw out something that we had talked about, and his wife Lizette was like, oh, I didn't know that. And that spoke to me, and the same way back to him, that, you know, we'll even have a conversation, and I'll even tell him, please tell Lizette to pray with Kim and I on this. There's a trust, and here's the way I always put it: trust is a wall that is built one brick at a time. You don't just go, there's trust. And here's what's challenging for us as leaders and pastors. When trust is broken, picture that brick wall, and it's now a crumbled mess of individual bricks. That's when we go, how can I trust this friend if this friend knocked down that wall of trust? And so we have to rebuild that trust one thing at a time. I would say to you as pastors, one of the things that I believe makes our friendship work is I know he doesn't need something from me. He's not in a relationship that he's like, I'm really struggling in life, and he is a self-independent. What does he need? Prayer? Yes. Does he need counsel at times? So do I. But it's not a need-based relationship.
Absolutely.
The other thing that's unique that you want to look for, pastors, is 99.89%. When they see us on Sunday, I might high-five him, give him a hug in the lobby. they have no idea that we were even friends.
Yeah.
I don't just stand and talk to Dion in the lobby and everyone's like, well, I wish he would talk to me.
Yeah, I don't flaunt my friendship.
That's a great
I don't go around the teacher's pet like I thought. I know what is happening in the church. You know, you touched on it about the wall. I use the analogy as like, how can you carry a heavy truth over a straw bridge?
Right.
You cannot. So when we bring those truth and corrections over a bridge which is not solid, you know, it's going to collapse and it's going to hurt people. Yep. Our bridge have been built over time where we have put the bricks and we've put the mortar and we've put the sweat etiquette into our relationship that it will handle when you bring correction to me as my pastor.
Sure.
But, you know, and you also not my friend, you my friend, for me to fix the church's problems. As a matter of fact, you have board members and elders for that position. I'm your friend and you send me a text and say, listen, pray with me on this or something like that. You know what I really appreciate, specifically because I believe we have a godly ordained friendship, that the Lord will tell me, or the Holy Spirit will tell me something in my heart and I get the prompting to send you a text and then you come back as like, I was just on that moment.
That was just in the last 2 weeks. And it's something that I wrote down is just that God connection. And pastors, what I would challenge you is ask the Holy Spirit to direct you. But in that God connection, there is a spirit, there is a heart connection. In 1 Samuel 18:1, it says, the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David. It says in the NIV version, he became one in spirit with David. And what I need as a leader, as a friend, is someone that I know he'll fight for me and I will fight for him. He has told me umpteen times, I've got your back. I've got your back. And so look for someone that is like-minded, let that trust build, but then ask the Holy Spirit, Lord, I need friends. Would you bring, if I'm a high percentage of pastors are male, God, would you bring a godly man into my life that can just be a Jonathan and be a David to me? Another key thing that we all know as far as is friendship is being a good listener. And I put the tag, it's a safe space and place to open up. He talks about our car ride and our drive, and I don't know that there's not been a subject that hasn't been touched on in our conversations, from parenting, and recognize this. I just feel prompted to say this. If I'm experiencing something in my marriage, or he is, neither of us are going to dog our spouses and say, well, Kim is really, there is a respect that we maintain for our spouses in this covenant of friendship. But one of us might say, the last 2 weeks have been really rough. Our schedule has been really heavy. Kim and I have been experiencing more friction. The little foxes are spoiling the vine, and I want to do my part. But please agree with me. You know, we'll have those kinds of things. The other thing I would say is, I need a person that's positive, and that is Dion Greenwood. He doesn't know a glass that is half empty. If there's a drop in it, he says we're about to win. And I need that kind of personality around me. And I have enough, here's the way I would put it, I have enough weights, anchors, and pressure in ministry. And here's how you can tell if it's going to be a godly friend. If he is always anchoring on me, pulling on me, bombarding with his issues, problems, then I'm not saying that we can't share our problems, but it's got to be that equal. It's a friend thing, because there are other relationships where I'm friends, but I'm the mentor, and that person is the mentee, and I'm not there to receive something from that relationship. And then, bottom line, I'm just going to tell you, it's got to be someone that there is companionship and you have fun. And when we go skiing, I got to get him back golfing. He's a very good golfer. but he hasn't golfed since he's been in Colorado. So I got to get him back on that. But you need people that you can be relaxed around, that you can enjoy spending time with.
And silence is okay with us.
Yes. We can drive through the traffic of Denver and we're okay. And I think that's a key thing about friendship. We
don't have to say something to just say something, you know?
Yeah. Other thoughts that you have? I've been babbling.
No, I think you've hit some amazing things. I do believe that whoever is reaching out to somebody, it's, you know, there needs to be a guard in the sense of like, I don't just trust anybody.
Sure.
But when I have this, like, I hold if something would go wrong with our relationship, I will hold the Lord accountable to that, because He showed me Dean Hawk to be my friend. Right. And I want to, and again, this is not to sound churchy or Christianesy or whatever kooky what people would say. I would say it's like, you have to really lean in that the Lord will show you that friend. Are you praying for that friend? It's like for your table of accountability. Do you pray for the seats on that table that the Lord will put your mentor in place, and your mentee and your disciple, and who you're discipling, and who's your hero seat, that he would put it, because then ultimately He's in charge of those relationships. Yeah. And 90% of the time, it's already stirred in that other person's heart. When you reach out and say, it's like, listen, let's go for a coffee, I want to chat, or how do we journey life together? I want to say is like, and relationships are built with one brick at a time, like you said. So don't expect a 15-year relationship by laying one brick.
Right.
And just open up your heart's secrets. And again, people think secrets, you've done something wrong. You know, there's stuff that we as men struggle with in our hearts.
Right.
And it's so difficult for us as men to be open and vulnerable to somebody, because we are the protectors. We're the protectors of our family. We're the protectors of our own hearts. And because of that, we always like,
Right.
Like, shall I punch first or wait for the first punch moment? But I definitely do believe you have to lean in with the empowerment of the Holy Spirit to bring you that 2 a.m. guy that you can put your full trust in, that you know that you will have your back. Like if you call me 2 o'clock in the morning and say, listen, I have a problem, come to my house immediately. I go, do I bring 2 guns or 3?
Right. Right. And then here's what I would say, pastors, what you're looking for, that is in Dion and many of the friends that I embrace as friends that are from within the church, is there's a spiritual maturity there. And here's twofold what that spiritual maturity does. Number one, there's a spiritual maturity, you mentioned it a short time ago, that if I am equipped with a waiter, that you're not like, I can't believe what kind of a pastor? Oh, I can't believe he's a pastor, because I got short or quip, you know, when something happened. That can see beyond and isn't looking for a pastor to be perfect.
Yep.
They're going to hold me to a high standard, but they're not holding me to perfection. And that's where I think friendships with people who are not in ministry can be judgmental. Absolutely. I can't believe that he would say that, do that, she would do that, and they're a pastor. Yep. Hey, we're human.
Absolutely.
The other piece that's valuable as far as that spiritual maturity is if I get over in the mode, I'm going, man, God's really been dealing with me. God's really been showing me. I need somebody that's going to engage with me on that level, not, what do you mean by that? I don't understand what God's doing in you. I need somebody that can meet me on that plateau of faith, or this is what I'm really believing God for. I think back to his son, what was that, summer of 22?
Yep.
Summer of 22, he's at the beach in Mexico and a boulder rolls on his son's leg, his shin, and crushes it. And just that process of hospital and believing God, and we're talking and we're communicating, and he sends me a picture, because that's what guys do. You know, we got past the initial trauma, and he goes, hey, look at this. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
There's nothing in my first aid box that can fix that.
But when he says to me, we are believing God that my son will walk, the muscles, the tendons, the nerves, and his own son was, what, 6 at the time?
Yeah.
Is proclaiming his own healing. he needs somebody that's going to rise to that level of faith, not going, hey, Dion, you know. And so that's that spiritual maturity that comes.
Absolutely. And on that level there's a different, in that I would think the pastoral and the friend is in unity with one another. As you were my pastor, you prayed with me, but also as my friend, you were standing in the gap with me, interceding for my son and the healing, and activating your other circle of friends to be partakers in, let's stand together and join our faith while we're proclaiming healing over William's leg. I think and this is, if I say this is so cool, I am so privileged and so honored that we are friends. And, you know, I think there's many people that can like, can I be his friend? What do I need to do to be his friend? And again, I want to go back.
Those are the people you don't want to be your friend.
The time and the time that we have put into it. Like I say, we've been in an Uber in Mexico together, and we have conversation, and there's no, I have to be pretending that I am a good guy, I'm not cussing. Man, I had a glass of wine at your table. Like, it's not because I'm with my pastor, I can't have a glass of wine.
Right.
Like, it is real life, real people. That is the thing. It's authentic relationship. It's nothing fake about it.
And I appreciate your friendship. Last thing I want to close with is I want to talk about the staff relationship. And I worked for Pastor Gerald Brooks in Dallas, Plano, there for 10 years. And he and I have been friends for 40 years now. And but when I was working for him, I had to, you say, how can you be friends with your staff? Well, here's what your staff member has to be willing to do. That if Kim and I and Gerald and Jenny are out at dinner and we're going out as friends, and at that point in time and day we were talking about the Cowboys, we're there as friends. And all of a sudden, Gerald would shift and he'd put on the pastor hat and he'd say, Dean, did you call the Thompson family? Now he shifted to pastor, leader, and boss. And where if staff members can't make that flux, well, I thought we were friends. Why are you talking about work? Because work and it just is all intertwined. And so that's one of the things that determines the depth that I can go in friendships with people that are on my staff. I've got a couple guys that we love to golf. We will heckle the tar out of each other on the golf course. And they will heckle me as a friend, not as he's my pastor, but there's a level of friendship. And so it's coaching, teaching, and training them. And if you're listening and you're a staff member, it's you being willing to adjust from friend zone to pastor zone to boss zone as your leader adjusts with you. So this is a little bit longer one, but Dion, thanks for joining me. Some great thoughts. And pastors, I pray in Jesus' name that God would send godly people into your life to lift up your arms, to do life with, to have fun with, to be a Jonathan, to be a David to you. So God bless you guys. We'll see you next month.
Thank you for joining us today. For a free sermon series and teaching outlines by Pastor Dean, visit us at deanhawk.com. Be sure and join us next month as we continue our growth on leadership.